Did you know that the Xbox Live Arcade actually started out as a disc-based distribution service on the original Xbox? Chances are you didn't, because Microsoft's mini marketplace only really gained widespread popularity once it relaunched alongside the release of the Xbox 360. And while we do have some positive hashtag video content in the works to celebrate the Xbox 360 turning 20, in this video, I'll be taking a look back at what many regard to be the worst game ever released on the Xbox Live Arcade. The game in question has largely been forgotten about now, mainly due to the fact that it was released way back in the mists of October 2007, and then quietly delisted around a year later. This means that, for the last 17 years or so, the worst game to ever appear on the Xbox Live Arcade has slowly faded away from the collective gaming conscience. And that game was the Advergame known as Yaris.
Yaris from Toyota.
Yaris? What the fuck is a Yaris? The term Advergame has been around for quite a while now. Obviously, it means a game created to advertise a product, and as soulless and corpo-douche as that name sounds, ancient Advergames like Cool Spot, Zool and McDonaldland are all remembered with fondness by those who played them. Nowadays, if a brand with a capital B wants to market itself to the youth, it can just throw some money at a popular game like Roblox or Fortnite, or, in the case of KFC here, PUBG Battlegrounds. Throw a couple of skins or emotes into an existing title and job done. Nice and simple. But back in the early days of the Xbox 360, when live service games were mainly confined to the PC, those capital B brands had to do something different. And by different, I do of course mean putting some effort into releasing an actual full video game. The small wave of budget-priced or free Advergames in the Xbox 360 era, however, were either absolutely terrible, like Burger King's Pocket Bike Racer, a game where you play as a junior whopper on a moped, or incredibly forgettable, like Red Bull Crashed Ice Connect, which I bet the majority of you watching this video never even knew existed. The only real exception to that rule was Doritos Crash Course, a curiously addictive obstacle course game that saw you pushing your Xbox avatar across the kind of treacherous terrain that would make Takeshi Kitano jealous. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, the Yaris is a model of car from Toyota, and for some inexplicable reason, Yaris, the Xbox Live Arcade game in question, was created and released as a free-to-download promotional tie-in for this line of vehicles. I say inexplicable here because I'm not exactly sure who this game was even aimed at. What potential purchaser of a car would be persuaded to buy a Yaris over all others by a free downloadable video game? Let alone one that didn't even demonstrate what was good about the Yaris to begin with, like, say, its excellent reliability or superb fuel economy. Loosely inspired by this series of adverts from 2007, this game forced you into a lazily modelled recreation of one of three types of Yaris: the liftback, the sedan, and the S-sedan. Then it slapped a gun-toting tentacle called a Mechanosymbiont, what the fuck, on the bonnet, and then forced you down 8 eye-wateringly bland tubular tracks whilst a collection of the most out-of-place and abstract enemies since, I don't know, Jet Set Willy's menagerie of monsters tried to take you out. Now, granted, the Mechanosymbiont and at least one of the enemies, this gas spider here, were lifted straight from those adverts. This shows at least a smidgen of attention to detail from the developers, but every other design decision seems to have amounted to, yeah, whatever, just chuck it in there. Who gives a fuck? I mean, come on, some of the enemies in this game are quite literally toasters. Toasters on legs! Oh, this game makes my brain hurt, and I've not even begun to tell you about it. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here though. Before we go deeper into this pile of digital dog dirt, we need a bit of a backstory. Yaris was published by Backbone Entertainment, the long-dissolved digital studio that once pumped out legions of perfectly playable XBLA ports of old-school titles like Gauntlet, Contra and Frogger, along with a handful of original Xbox Live Arcade games like the shockingly shabby Shrek and Roll, a movie tie-in balance 'em up that couldn't even muster up a good name, let alone anything resembling good gameplay or production values.
Guess I ogre-powered you. Little joke there.
I told you I could do it.
Shrek and Roll actually looks like Red Dead Redemption 2 when standing next to Yaris though. Yaris was the only game ever released by seven-person studio Castaway Entertainment, which formed in 2003 out of former Blizzard North employees. Hop into a Toyota Yaris and drive it on crazy tracks loaded with stubborn obstacles, cool power-ups and intense enemy action. The marketing blurb on the old Xbox website bleated before listing off a gallery feature as one of the game's main selling points. However, one look at the mind-bogglingly bad cast of characters in this gallery paints Yaris as some kind of Frankenstein's monster of a game. Now, I've already covered the advert-accurate gas spider and the Temu 8080 toaster on legs, but there is way worse in here than that. How about the creepy way that the Mechano symbiont slithers out of the hood of the Yaris like a slimy snail's eye? Or the dead-eyed look on the face of this barely animated bulldog on a hoverboard? Or this random owl thing that seems to be the game's mascot for some reason? Or this implausible one-eyed yeti that's piloting a futuristic helicopter? Why is that in a game about a Yaris? And what about this mini bike riding wrestler that inexplicably comes in both beige and green flavours? Who thought they were a good idea to include? And hell, the least said about this insanely huge coin, fire hydrant and piggy bank, the better. I can't figure out whether it was incompetence or laziness that meant that these assets weren't scaled to fit onto the screen properly, but either way, it's a pretty stunning slideshow of shite, considering the two artists responsible for the look of Yaris had previously worked for big companies like Sega on projects like Kid Chameleon and The Ooze, and later for Blizzard on Diablo 2. I don't know, Kid Chameleon is pretty old now, so maybe this was their first time making 3D models or something. It certainly looks like it was. That's enough about the visuals though. How about the gameplay? Well, in a jaw-dropping display of barely understanding the brief, in a game about promoting cars, there's not very much driving involved at all. Sure, you can use the left thumbstick to speed up a bit or slow down a bit or nudge your Yaris of choice left or right to avoid obstacles, but the car basically drives itself around the game's 8 looping tracks. This means the player is able to put more concentration into using the right thumbstick to aim the Mechano symbiont's reticle at the game's bizarre adversaries. But get this! Shooting also has a lock-on mechanic with very heavy auto-aim, which makes it a breeze to take out targets. Seriously, up until about midway through, when the game suddenly hits you with a huge difficulty spike by throwing far too many enemies and some bullet sponge boss battles at you, Yaris pretty much plays itself. And those enemies, Christ on a bike, they either fly onto the screen from behind you and hover there waiting to be shot, or drive onto the screen from behind you and hover there waiting to be shot. And if you're lucky, some of them might even occasionally leave an ugly, screen-tearing trail of flame PNGs in their wake too. It's all impossibly grotesque to look at, and unbelievably, it's just as bad to listen to. Did the developers sample the Yaris's engine noises perhaps? You know, to give players a better understanding of the car and how it might perform or sound in real life? Did they? Hell, your Yaris is silent for the entire game. The only audio you can hear underneath Yaris's selection of god-awful looping soundtracks are the pathetically limp pew-pews of whatever weapon your Yaris currently has equipped, the occasional damage sound effect when you run through a wall of clip art flame effects, and the flaccid wibble 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 noise that the wrestlers make when you fire a laser bolt up their backside. Yaris's showcase of shoddiness doesn't end there though. While I've already mentioned the trashy tracks, I haven't discussed their nonsensical names, like Northbound on 101, even though this track here literally goes in all directions, including up and down. And there's Lost on the Off-Ramp, a track that has zero, count 'em, zero on-ramps, let alone any bloody off-ramps. I don't know, I'm starting to think that the entire team at Castaway Entertainment were either A, making the entire process of game development up as they went along, or B, were running a cheeky scam where they rushed out the bare minimum in order to get their hands on a nice big suitcase full of advertising cash from Toyota. Allegedly. Of course, I'm not the only one that thinks that Yaris is awful. Reviews at the time were predictably harsh. Games Radar, for example, politely stated that there are actually no redeeming qualities to Yaris, while Xbox One magazine was much more keen to stick the boot in, simply calling it a festering turd. And so, in the face of this overwhelmingly negative reception and an expiring license deal between Backbone Entertainment and Toyota, the choice was made to yoink Yaris off the XBLA before any more damage could be done. Farewell Yaris, your legacy as the worst game ever published on the XBLA will live on in video game history, whether you like it or not. But wait! You know, at the start of this video when I said that many people regarded Yaris as the worst game ever released on the Xbox Live Arcade? Well, I'm actually not one of those people, because although Yaris is absolutely up there as one of the top XBLA stinkers of all time, in my opinion, the worst game ever released on the Xbox Live Arcade was actually this one, Double Dragon 2: Wander of the Dragons. But that, my friends, is a sad, sad story for a completely different day.
Virtue and vice are warp and woof of our world.
Thank you so much for watching this little look back at the Xbox Live Arcade's painful past. Do give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and please do subscribe to Eurogamer for almost daily videos about video games. There won't be any more videos about Yaris though. You couldn't pay me to play any more of that literal car crash. Goodbye. Wibble, wibble, wibble.